Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you've hit subscribe. Today on the show, what does the Deshaun Watson injury mean for the Browns betting market? We'll discuss that and the most significant NFL matchups with Patrick Everson. We'll also talk college football playoff rankings and get picks from Brett McMurphy and Collin Wilson. But we start with the drama-filled NBA. Pacers as a 6.5-point dog beat Philly last night behind 33 points and 15 assists from Tyrese Haliburton. No rest for the Sixers. They turn around and play Boston tonight. Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis are questionable. Suns host the T-Wolves tonight with Devin Booker making his return from a calf injury. It'll be the first time Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal play together. Wolves are 6-point dogs on the second night of a back-to-back. And what a night it was on Tuesday with the score at 0-0. Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Jaden McDaniels were all ejected for their roles in a scuffle. Green putting Rudy Gobert in a headlock. Warriors have lost 4 straight. Time for more money with Matt Moore and Jay Money. Let's just start by unpacking last night's events in San Francisco. Jay, what do you make of the Warriors and what went down?
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't like that Draymond Green just kind of wakes up and chooses violence in some of these games. I mean, he didn't have to necessarily put Gobert in a headlock. He could have just went over and pushed him or something. Just we've seen this too many times from Draymond Green, but also it's interesting to see how the Warriors continue to win games on the road but lose them at the house. It's the exact opposite of what they did last year. So I actually think that's pretty interesting, and it's interesting to see who can be their second go-to scorer because, in my opinion, Chris Paul looks a little cooked right now.
I'd agree with that. I've been wondering about Chris Paul, but Matt Moore, your take?
One thing I think it'll be interesting to see how long Draymond Green is suspended. He will be suspended, but it'll be interesting to see how long it is. This is a gentler, kinder NBA, but you're also talking about Draymond Green, and repeat offender has been a term that's been used with him in regards to these incidents, especially after stomping on Domantas Sabonis in the playoffs. That said, I kind of am expecting about 5 games for Draymond Green. That's the over-under I would set right now. Some executives I talked to this morning said over, some said under, based off of the fact that there's rarely that kind of punishment for anyone in the league at this point. I will say I think the Warriors are going to be okay. They were an underplay for me in preseason for all kind of the reasons that we've talked about and seen from them early on in the season. But look, the overall resume here is still very good. Steph Curry is going to be back in a few weeks. It's not considered serious. He's not limping. He's not in a boot. He's not in a brace. It looks like that he's going to be okay. They're just being cautious. The Warriors are top 10 in both offense and defense, schedule adjusted at dunks and threes. That's a really promising thing here. You have to kind of pay more attention to what the numbers are telling you early in the season than the win-loss record. Later in the season, you'll see, well, could you actually win the games or not? But early on, it's a lot of variant stuff. They're going to be okay. They're just not going to be maybe as good as people thought. And I do think that right now, if you're still looking at win totals live in the market, there's still probably a little bit of value on the under.
I'll say this about Steph Curry. Even with him healthy and playing great, Warriors were struggling, and you noted this earlier in the week, Andrew Wiggins, inconsistency and whatnot. So they have quite a bit to figure out, and that's before any potential Draymond Green suspension. And by the way, 5 games, it's pretty hefty. Wouldn't be so surprised, though. In other news, good news, Pacers get quick revenge on the 76ers. Indiana, 3rd in the East right now. Matt, any bets you advise making on them?
They haven't moved this line enough. Last Friday, we wrote about this for Action Network. The Pacers are still minus 136 to make the playoffs. This number is absurd. If you watch the Pacers, it's pretty evident that they're going to be a top 10 offense in the NBA. They're probably going to be top 5, but even being conservative, let's say top 10. Over the last 10 seasons and data I've collected, top 10 offenses are 88 and 12 in making the playoffs. Yes, no. 88 and 12. Top 5 offenses, if you're like me and believe that they're always going to be a top 5 offense, given how Tyrese Haliburton is playing, the pace and the shooting that they have, top 5 offenses are 49 and 1. Yes, no, on making the playoffs. they're going to make the playoffs. This number being yes minus 136. The downside here is literally Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt. That's what you're betting on right here. Because if they continue to be healthy, this is going to be a top 10 offense, and they're going to make the playoffs. There's real good value right now on Pacers to make the playoffs minus 136 in the market.
Jay, what do you think? Pacers the real deal?
Yeah, I think so. I'm right there with Matt. I like the depth of this team. I thought they should have made the playoffs last year. Obviously, Halliburton had an injury, but that's literally the only thing that can hold them back. This is an MVP caliber type of player in Tyrese Halliburton. I like the way that they're coached as well. This is, like you said, as long as they stay healthy, they're definitely making the playoffs. And I also bet the Pacers to make the playoffs as well. I got it at minus 140, but I think that it's a great play in my opinion.
Yeah, curious to see how Halliburton continues to emerge. But turning our attention to tonight, we'll see the Suns' big three for the first time against the T-Wolves. Phoenix laying 6. Fair or foul, Matt?
Foul. Definitely foul. This is a trap spot. And there's a lot of assumptions being built into this line that I think are pretty faulty. Let's start with the fact that this is the first game for the big three in Phoenix, and that's exciting and awesome. And hey, they actually get to have their guys, and that's good. What have we seen this season when star players, big usage guys come back in the lineup? We saw it with Devin Booker when he came in. The Suns lost that game. The first game with Bradley Beal, the Suns lost that game. Now they got 2 of them. It's more firepower, yes, but there's a little bit of clunkiness when you're trying to get used to that kind of usage being added, and they're trying to figure out how to play with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker all on the floor. The Clippers obviously struggling with James Harden, a similar kind of situation. It's hard to integrate those guys right off the bat. The Wolves are on a back-to-back, but I tell you, this Wolves team right now knows that there's momentum here and that they've got a real opportunity to build up a good record, which could help them get into the postseason. They're hungry. They're not resting anybody. That's really interesting to me. Usually they would be like, oh, somebody's got knee tendonitis, or oh, somebody's got a sore hip or a calf. Nope, they're going tonight. I think they really believe that this is a moment. They want to really push because this Wolves team is trying to prove that they are good. When you haven't won anything, you want to prove it, and this is a good spot for them. Jay's going to tell you about the rest spot. He's going to go on and on and on about the rest and how everybody's on back-to-back.
How dare you put words in his mouth? The man is here. Let him speak on it.
I want to know what the numbers were. Hang on. I want to know what the numbers were. I looked it up. Last 5 seasons, teams favored with 1 day of rest or more versus teams on a back-to-back, just 47% against the spread. Not nearly as good as you would think. The market overcompensates for that rest spot.
Jay, your rebuttal.
I mean, first I want to show him the shirt here, a little Phoenix Suns Devin Booker shirt here. But I actually think that this is a trap spot for the underdog here. It seems the Wolves are gonna be a trendy underdog in this spot. It's not just a back-to-back for the Wolves. This is 3rd game in 4 nights. It's a back-to-back plus 3rd game in 4 nights plus 4th game in 6 nights, all on the road for this Timberwolves team. And also another thing that I'd like to fade as well, them coming off a big tournament win last night versus the Warriors, which you could kind of see them run out of gas. We can't forget Anthony Edwards is coming down from a sickness as well. After playing these games, I think this team is really going to run out of gas here. Many people may not believe that this Suns team is top tier with their big three, but Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant is like an unstoppable trio there, in my opinion. So obviously the defense can slide a little bit. The Wolves are the better defensive team here, but when you have the Suns on a 3-game homestand, they've lost the previous 2 home games. This is somewhat like a must-win spot for the Suns here. I think they put everything into beating these Wolves by double digits tonight. So I actually think the Suns minus the 6 is the right side here.
Don't mind me instigating a little inter-show drama, just trying to keep pace with the NBA. But that being said, let's get picks for tonight. Matt, what do you got?
Well, first off, I'm not going to put Jay in a headlock. You can just count on that. Suspension for me. I'll take the over 224.5 in Celtics Sixers. I've got this projected way over. Last matchup went under. A little bit of a different spot here. Embiid is questionable. Over is 20-14 in the post-Ben Simmons years for the Sixers. When Embiid is out, they play at a faster pace, and they don't have nearly as much defense as they did when Simmons was around. This team is still very good, and they have a lot of defenders. Nick Batum is also out with personal reasons. That, to me, gives a lot of indication here towards the over. For Boston, no Jaylen Brown. That means more Peyton Pritchard in this game, and Pritchard's numbers are really good in net, but it's all on the offensive side. The defense is about 4 points worse without him on the floor, or with him on the floor. So I think there's a good chance here for an over. By the way, this is also a back-to-back spot, obviously, for the Sixers. Teams tend to actually play faster and defend less. Defense is more work. So when you're tired, you're trying to just get up and down the floor to keep yourself moving because you're gassed. You don't necessarily slow down the way you would think. Teams do tend to play faster, and overs tend a little bit on back-to-back. So I'll take the over 224.5 for Celtics Sixers.
That's a really good point. I'm going to go off on a side note here and just point out that I'm upset that the in-season tournament courts are ruining our beautiful aesthetic here on our screens for Green Dot Daily. Call me a hater if you want, but bleh, can't stand looking at those courts. Sorry, J Money, your pick.
Those courts are absolutely hideous. I can second that. But I'm gonna go with the Portland. I'm gonna go with the Portland Trailblazers first half team total under 53.5. Let's take a look at the Cavs team here. We know that this is a great defensive team, but they hadn't been putting together back-to-back performances. And we hear the coach talking after the game about they have to look towards the defensive end. That's where their offense has to come from. If you look at the Blazers, this team really struggles at scoring the basketball and shooting the basketball, and mainly from three-point range. That's the main place that the Cavs aren't great at defending. Where they are great at defending is the paint. They're number 6 in defense in points per game in the paint allowed in here. So I don't think that the Blazers are going to get many easy baskets down low going up against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And also, they're not a great shooting team as well. If the Cavs could hold the Warriors to 52 first half points, I definitely think they can hold the Blazers to less than 50 points in the first half. So give me the Blazers in the first half, team total under 53.5.
Matt, don't worry, not going to ask for any hot takes on the Blazers or anything since you gave us, plenty of content earlier in the show. Matt Moore, J Money, you guys are great. By the way, you can also catch them on the Buckets podcast. I'm even going to join Matt later this week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Anytime.
First pick that I'm looking at is De'Aaron Fox over 25.5 points. And let's make it a little ladder here. The Kings have been significantly better with De'Aaron Fox this season than without him. And this is a matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers that he has absolutely thrived in, and he should continue to thrive in. Over the last few seasons, he scored 37, 34, 32, 31, and 22 points against the Los Angeles Lakers. And much of this has to do with the fact that the Lakers have had some defensive struggles, particularly in the backcourt with Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. Lineups with the two of them, where with both Reeves and Russell, are allowing opponents to score just an absolutely obscene 127.4 points per 100 possessions. So I like De'Aaron Fox to go over 25.5 points and 30 plus points. For my next play, I'm looking at another point guard that is going to take advantage of another porous defense, and that's Dennis Schroeder to go over 14.5 points against the Milwaukee Bucks. I like this spot because the Bucks defense has just been really bad this season, and they're 19th ranked in adjusted defensive rating on the season, and they've really struggled to adjust without Drew Holiday, who was such a defensive anchor for that team over the past couple of seasons. And they've continued to allow monster games to guards, and including games to Dennis Schroeder, who scored 24 points against the Bucks already earlier in November. And with OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. both listed as doubtful for this game, there should be plenty of additional usage for Dennis Schroeder to take advantage of this poor Bucks backcourt defense. I like Dennis Schroeder to go over 14.5 points in tonight's matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks.
To the NFL, yesterday the Browns announced placing Deshaun Watson on season-ending IR with a shoulder injury. Cleveland went from plus 900 to plus 2,500 to win the AFC, and from plus 2,200 to plus 5,000 to win the Super Bowl per BetMGM. With that, we welcome Vegas Insider senior reporter Patrick Everson back to the show. It just so happens the Browns have a game this week against the Steelers with major division implications. What effects are you seeing in the market considering this Watson news?
Well, look, let me start with a comment I got earlier in the week from Chase Michelson, Maria. He's behind the counter at the Superbook, and just relating to the Steelers. We'll get to the Browns in a moment. But he said, we continue to be mystified by how Pittsburgh pulls out wins 6-3 straight up, 6-3 against the spread, which is important for all our viewers' purposes. But 0-9 in yards gained. They've been outgained in every game. He said it's absolutely amazing. But I did follow up on this matchup, Browns Steelers, with Jack Meaden, I should say, behind the counter at PointsBet. He's a trader there. And he said point spread ticket count on this game at the moment, this is literally within the last hour or two, is dead even, but 88% of money on the Steelers. And a lot of times when that happens, it tends to indicate that there's a large wager or two on one side when you have that kind of disparity. But PointsBet told me, no, we've got no big bets on the Steelers, even though the ticket count is even. More money is churning on Pittsburgh this week, and I don't think that's going to change after the news of Deshaun Watson. And to your point about the spread, it's now jumped the fence. The line movement today has been swift. Browns opened 4. They went straight to 2.5 earlier today. And now it's jumped the fence actually to Steelers -1. So I do think that's maybe a little bit of an overreaction, Maria. It makes me think a little bit about Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland has played okay without not Watson's obviously better, but Cleveland's played okay this season when he's not been in. So it's a little interesting that maybe there's some overreaction there.
Yes, perhaps tempting. And the other big AFC North divisional matchup is tomorrow. Bengals at Ravens. Both teams coming off somewhat surprising losses. Anything to note ahead of that game?
Yeah, well, this one at PointsBet, this is again with Jack Meenan at PointsBet. Open Ravens 2.5 within about a half hour on Sunday night, Maria. It was bet up to Baltimore -4. It's now 3.5. And Jack said that the Bengals injuries, specifically T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson among them, are a key concern. It's two-way spread play on this game so far. A slight lean toward the Bengals in tickets and money on the spread. But Jack said when the Ravens got to -4, there was some resistance and money started to show on Bengals +4. Might indicate some sharper action coming in on Bengals when that number touches 4.
That's a hard one to read, in my opinion, but appreciate the context. How about Jets-Bills this Sunday in the wake of lackluster play by two teams that previously looked to be in play to make the postseason? Buffalo going so far, though, as to fire offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, my Denver Broncos are on a 3-game win streak for the first time in 2+ years. So I'm a little happy about that. I looked over just some of the movement. Don't have any commentary on it from the odds makers, but just some of the movement at DraftKings. And the Bills have bounced between -6.5 and -7 a couple of times this week. Currently -7, Maria. The firing didn't really move the needle toward the Jets at all. Like I said, it's still sitting -7 right now on the Bills. And in fact, early action well tilted toward Buffalo. Granted, early action is going to be not heavy. It doesn't get heavier until you get to the weekend, but spread tickets 2-1, spread money almost 5-1 on Buffalo.
Okay, so the lack of the line moving in favor of the Jets probably has something to do with them being unable to move the ball. So I guess I'm not surprised about that. Finally, getting ahead of ourselves a bit, looking ahead to Monday, but it is a Super Bowl rematch. What have you heard about the market for this one, Chiefs and Eagles?
Right. It's been bouncing between 2.5 and 3. Chiefs 2.5, Chiefs 3. Multiple books, but including at PointsBet, where again I got some good information earlier today from sports trader Jack Meenan. But he said the bulk of the play is coming in on the Eagles, and the bulk of the bulk is when the Eagles are at +3. So bettors are definitely liking the Eagles when they're getting a field goal in this situation. He said as far as the matchup itself, it's a standalone Monday night game, a repeat of the Super Bowl. He said this is a bettor's dream. So the book has seen more notable action to this stage early in the week than they would normally see on a Monday night game because it's such a big matchup. And again, the Eagles are to play at least early on. 3-1 spread tickets, 6-1 spread money on Philly in the early going. And again, they like the Eagles at +3 especially. Early bettors, Maria, also hitting the total here. Tickets favor the over, but by about 60% or so, but 78% of money so far on the under, and the total's down 2.5 points to 45.5. And then there might be a Swifties effect. Will she travel? She's in South America now. Is that right?
You're asking me, and to be honest, I know I know she changed the lyric to one of her songs and included a guy on the Chiefs. We all know who that is.
Okay. Well, so as for the potential Swifties effect, Jack Meenan at PointsBet was kind enough to address that as well. He said if Swift attendance becomes clear early, i.e. before Monday, it's likely we'll see at least an odds cut to Kelsey, an odds cut on Kelsey for anytime TD. Now, Kelsey is already the -160 favorite in the anytime TD market. So that's going to become, you're going to have to lay even a little bit more juice if Taylor Swift decides to hop a private jet and get to the game. And Kelsey is also already the +450 favorite to score the first TD. And I would guess that might get some attention and maybe get shortened up a little bit as well.
So, regardless of however you feel about, their relationship and it being sort of plastered across the TV, I find it fascinating that there is legitimate, odds movement, and the sports books are taking this into account, in anticipation that she might be there. So, I'm glad you gave us the hard hitting reporting, Patrick. Thank you.
I'm the guy on the ground, I just bringing you the news, all the news that's fit to print.
We appreciate it.
When news breaks, we fix it.
Here's a look at the latest college football playoff rankings. Ohio State has dropped to number 2, switching places with Georgia, while Michigan stayed in the number 3 spot. Florida State, Washington, and the rest of the top 8 also remain the same. Collin Wilson and Brett McMurphy join me now. Brett, after 3 weeks of these college football playoff rankings, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, Maria, they become pretty predictable, about as predictable as Michigan's second half offense against Penn State. Tuesday's rankings had the same 25 teams as the previous week. The selection committee shuffled a few teams around, but that's it. Really, the only thing that mattered, and this won't impact the playoff race, but the New Year's Six games, and that was Missouri. They jumped up from 14 to number 9. They can't get into the playoff, but it does basically lock up a New Year's Six bowl game for Missouri if they can beat Florida and Arkansas. Yep, sorry, Collin. If Missouri does that, they would remain ranked high enough to play a New Year's Six bowl game, either the Fiesta, Cotton, or the Peach. But as far as any movement among teams in the playoff contention, nothing to see here. Move on and wait till next week.
Well, Georgia is the new number 1, as I said, though Michigan has the best odds to win a national championship. So, Collin, are you buying Georgia at 1?
Absolutely. They're number 1 team in our Action Network power ratings. They would project as a 7-point favorite over Florida State in the semifinals. And some of the sharper whales that I know out in Las Vegas have said that would be one of their biggest plays of the entire season if they were able to get Georgia less than 10 against Michigan or against Florida State in the opening round. They absolutely, in the eyes of whale bettors, that I would think that Georgia is number 1 here. They have interchangeable explosive parts on offense. Brock Bowers goes down, a guy that was sniffing some Heisman talk, and then Ladd McConkey steps up. Now Ladd McConkey's hurt again, and Brock Bowers is back in the lineup. This Georgia offense has so many ways to attack. They're going to dominate from here on out if they can survive Alabama. It's the only roadblock, in my opinion, to a national title.
Brett, how do you feel about Georgia?
Yeah, I agree with a lot that Collin said. I mean, look, last year Georgia started number 3 in the first poll before they moved up to number 1. This year they were at number 2 the first couple of weeks before they moved up to number 1. I think the committee felt like consecutive wins against Missouri and Ole Miss, 2 top 15 teams, was enough to push them over Ohio State. I don't think anybody doubts that if Georgia goes 13-0, they would not end up being the number 1 ranked team, especially getting Brock Bowers back. But kind of what Collin referenced with Alabama, even though they're the 2-time defending champs and ranked number 1, Georgia still has to get past Alabama in the SEC title game. And as hard as it may seem to imagine, a 12-1 Georgia team that does not win the SEC title may not make the playoff.
Wild. And Ohio State, of course, still has a pair of victories over top 25 teams in Notre Dame and Penn State. But Georgia gets another ranked opponent this weekend with Tennessee. Moving on, though, let's get your best bets for this week. Collin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, let's go some action tonight. Let's get Central Michigan plus 11 against the Ohio Bobcats. Not really sure what's going on with the Bobcats, one of the best offenses coming into the season. And now they've failed to score 20 points or more since October 7th. There's plenty of bowl motivation here for Central Michigan, sitting at 5-5, as to where Ohio is all but dead in the MAC East division. They've already qualified for a bowl. And Central Michigan running back Marion Lukes is going to be a huge issue for the Ohio defense. It's 112th in tackle grading. Just too many missed tackles going on here, and Lukes is going to make them pay. So I like Central Michigan at double digits tonight.
Kickoff set for tonight at 7 Eastern on ESPNU. Make your Wednesday a bit more interesting, perhaps. Brett, what's your pick for this week?
Maria, before I go to my pick, I just got some breaking news. UCF just scored another touchdown against Oklahoma State. So Rough go for my Cowboys coming off Bedlam. I'm going to the game that probably not a lot of people have any interest in, but that's why I'm going to it. Auburn and New Mexico State. I'm looking at the total under 49. Auburn has the Iron Bowl next week against Alabama. New Mexico State has a home game against Jacksonville State, but the week after that, they're playing in their first ever Conference USA title game. Both teams are looking ahead. They could care less about this game. Also, New Mexico State quarterback Diego Piava could be a game time decision. So New Mexico State may have basically their entire offense not playing in this game. If I could give true serum to both coaches, and believe me, I've tried, they would just love to have a running clock in this game. Auburn would take a 3-0 victory. New Mexico State would happily take its $1.8 million payday, and both teams would go on their merry way, stay healthy, and move on to bigger things. Because of that, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, a lot of runs. The game gets shortened up, and we will go under 49 here.
All right, Auburn 6-4, New Mexico State 8-3. But Brett, you make it interesting. You both do. Catch more Brett and Collin on BBOC Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Guys, thank you. Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, you can easily reference. Just follow Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. You can hang out with the Action Network crew Sunday, December 3rd in Hoboken, New Jersey at the Shepherd and the Knucklehead from 4 to 9:30 p.m. as we do a live broadcast of the Favorites podcast with Chad Millman and Simon Hunter. Go to eventbrite.com and search the Favorites pod or hit the link below to RSVP. And that's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again Thursday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.